Hello, shortcuts. It's been a while. I've been away. I hope you've missed me, but I'm back. And on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a new listing. And I'm very excited about it. So I thought I'd give you all a little preview. And, let's start with someone who. Well, there are certain artists I have in my collection that are, somewhat eccentric choices. One might argue. Harry Nilsson is one. I always get whatever Harry Nilsson I can find. The other is Nina Simone. I just find her the most fascinating character. Just an extraordinary artist. A wannabe classical pianist who became a activist and icon. And I have selected two Japanese first presses for you both that I think highlight the best of her career, mostly because each of these two records feature my two favorite songs by Nina Simone. So there you go. Let's get into it. The two records are Pastel Blues and It Is Finished by Nina Simone. I'm going to start with Pastel Blues. An early pressing, an early record that she recorded on the Philips label, although the Japanese first press went out on Mercury. I love the tone, the sepia tone of the cover. This record is super hard to find. The Japanese pressings of particularly 60s and 70s Nina Simone are really full sounding compared to represses. Represses tend to sound quite thin, and when you've got that thinness and her voice that is some, I kind of liken it to an oboe. She's sometimes got quite a straining, harsh voice, and if the record and pressing is thin, it can sound a bit oppressive, and so you really need something that kind of takes advantage of those early analog tapes. And so Pastel Blues is a perfect example. Absolutely, utterly love it. And the song that's on here that is one of my two favorites is, of course, Sinner Man, which is on side 2. It's between 10 and 11 minutes long, and it is absolutely astonishing. If you haven't heard it, please go check out Sinner Man from Pastel Blues. The other song that's on this is the record, I guess the song that began her ascent into activism and living in Africa, Liberia, which we'll come back to in a second for It Is Finished. Via Barbados, I mean, just extraordinary, having tax challenges and family issues and abusive husbands. I mean, it's an amazing story. But out of that has come incredible art. Like Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, of course, covered by many blues heroes, including Clapton on his Layla album with Derek and the Dominoes. But of course, Strange Fruit. Strange fruit hanging from the trees, lynched black men and women, brought to stark, almost too hard to comprehend reality. Now, this album I'm very excited about because this is, let's say, her 30th album, right? She hadn't recorded a record for 4 years, which for Nina Simone was very, very unusual. She was living in Barbados, living in Liberia. She'd fallen out with her daughter who accused her of being abusive. she came back to the US and played a live concert in, I think it was in Carnegie Hall, in 1973, which became 1974's It Is Finished. Now, this kind of fools you. This looks like she's, in complete repose, in complete control of what it is that's important to her. But it is fair to say, she was a mess at this time. It was really hard. And, she hadn't recorded in 1970. She made this in 74. She didn't record again, I think, until 78 with the Baltimore album. But It Is Finished is amazing. It's got a whole bunch of kind of African instrumentation, some Spanish sounds, some really spiritual songs. But the song on here that is just genuinely special is funkier than a mosquito's tweeter. And if you want to have a song that shows off your system and creates the rhythmic pulse of this song is quite extraordinary. If you don't know it, you probably will you'll find it hard to believe that it is Nina Simone's song. And I still remember when I first heard it, I was in a car with my good friend Charlie driving north of Sydney for a day mountain biking, and we were just playing songs, and he said, "I got something to play you," and he put it on his car radio, and I swear to you, by the end of the song, both of us had tears coming out of our eyes, not because it's sad, but because it's joyous, and it is incredible. Please seek it out. Pastel Blues, and It Is Finished. Now, how do you follow that? Well, I think you follow that with what is arguably the greatest blues album that B.B. King ever made. And it is this. Indianola, Mississippi Seeds. 71, 72. This is actually a first press promo. Now, B.B. King at this time was seeking a hit. He needed some money. But the record company, he'd done really well with his previous album, Completely Well, which it is a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant album. What makes this one stick out is his choice of piano players. He played with Leon Russell, and she is extraordinary in this album, Carole King. The songs that he does with Carole King on this album are really something. Please give it a listen. Indianola, Mississippi Seeds, a first press promo. Man, you don't see many of those. So how do you follow that? This is another promo. This time it's a white label promo. I love this record. It's Dolly Parton is, I guess like Nina Simone, genuinely iconic. And somewhat like B.B. King in the late 70s, she became somewhat of a pop artist. I mean, she crossed over to the pop charts. She just had really was, chasing a different type of song, creating different types of hits. But this record, Heartbreak Express, that she made in 1982, was somewhat more of a return to her country roots and generated a number of hit singles, one of which was twinned with a re-recording of I Will Always Love You, which became a number one hit in the US. I love the sleeve as well. Heartbreak Express, Dolly Parton. So, we've had, let's call it jazz, soul, blues, country. Time for a bit of hip hop. What about, let's see, we'll do a little quiz. What is the first platinum selling hip hop album? There you go. I'll give you 5 seconds to have a think about what that might be. The answer is this. Run DMC's third album, Raising Hell. This is Japanese first press. It is utterly fantastic. The box came with 2 copies. I literally jumped up and down. Oh man. It's so good. Walk This Way, the original Walk This Way. He's like a record where I think it's 10 tracks and every single one is iconic. Another iconic figure. Now, this artist had a period in the 70s where they created a persona which drove some of the finest concept albums in the history of recorded music. Then somewhat of a dip. I would say Diamond Dogs is David Bowie's least impressive 70s record. But again, that's like saying who's your least favourite child, because his 70s output is almost beyond repute. But then in 75, he made Young Americans. Of course, one of the greatest artists of all time, and his singles in the 70s are, legendary for extraordinary reason. But let's think about the two songs that bookend Young Americans. And look at the title track, Young Americans, Philadelphia, soul influenced, and then Fame. Now, I think Fame in 1975 must have had the listeners absolutely flabbergasted. It is such a slab of funk and genius. Yeah, and that's the Japanese first press. I've never had that before. I've never had this either. Bernard Herrmann, one of the greatest film score directors of all time, without question. Maybe John Williams and a few others might be up there, but Bernard Herrmann created not just soundtracks, he created an atmosphere. And he completed the soundtrack for this movie and died literally hours later in his sleep, which is, poignant, but also, I think, kind of perfect. Because the record I have here is the Japanese first press of Taxi Driver by Bernard Herrmann, complete with OD. Washing the scum from the street, the strings, the genuine, the sound of the New York 70s scum, and Robert De Niro's excerpts of dialogue. It's a hell of a listen. Now, after you've, let's say, cleaned the grime off you after you listen to Taxi Driver, you might need something sweet. And you can't get much more sweet than this. Midnight Love by Marvin Gaye. Get yourself some sexual healing. Sounds beautiful. Japanese first press. Couple that I'm going to run through more quickly because they're classics of the Shortcuts oeuvre. So let's say the Help album by the Beatles. This is a 1976 repress, amazing condition with a perfect obi. Or Bob Marley and the Wailers, one of the finest live albums of all time. Another Shortcuts classic, the underrated but not by us, Goat's Head Soup, Japanese first press, hard cardboard gatefold that also includes, of course, the poster of the actual Goat's Head Soup. Does not look appetizing. And then I've got a couple of collections, things that I think are fun. These are super cheap, but phenomenal quality. How about 1983, 1984, 1985, Hall & Oates, H2O, Hall & Oates, Private Eyes, one of the best pop albums of the 80s. And maybe one of their more underrated, but a huge amount of fun, 1984's Big Bang Bomb, 3 Japanese first presses, 84, 85, 86, Daryl Hall and John Oates. Look at the backside of H2O. It's just brilliant. It's just superb albums. An artist that has had a bit of a, let's call it revival, even though arguably he's never gone away. But I mean, his most recent tour here was a success, and he claims it was his last. But I've got a couple of Japanese first presses here of records that are maybe a little bit off the beaten track. The soundtrack to Friends, beautiful melodic piece of work. But this is one that I've never had before, and I put it on, and I thought, wow, 1978. You know, so by 1978, Elton John had a string of hit records, all with Bernie Taupin as the lyricist. And this, I think maybe it was his second record without Bernie Taupin as lyricist. But I think it's getting a little bit of a cult reputation. I mean, the production quality on this is ridiculous, and this is a proper hard cardboard gatefold. This is Elton John's Single Man. Of course, it comes with all, but look at this. How wonderful is that? Now, there's a gatefold. That is fantastic. Elton John's A Single Man. Now, we'll finish off with a quick run through of some classics left over from the record fair. I had my first ever record fair, Glebe. For those of you, and I saw some of you in the club, thank you for popping by. But here are a few classics that were still in the box. We have the Yayas, Get Your Yayas Out, Rolling Stones, Midnight Rambler, man, Street Fighting Man. Or how about Cosmo's Factory, arguably Creedence's greatest record. I've got another little fun bundle here. And another really, really cool gatefold. I'll save it. So this is Duran Duran. And this is Japanese 12-inch of the Wild Boys, complete with Obi. A really, really lovely thing. But this Arena on hard cardboard gatefold, inside and out, immaculate with Obi. There you go. I mean, listen to this track list. Is there something I should know? Hungry Like a Wolf, New Religion, Save a Prayer, The Wild Boys, The Seventh Stranger. What a song that is. The Chauffeur. Now, The Chauffeur, my brother raves, thinks that song is quite something. The classic union of the Snake, Planet Earth, and Careless Memories. Up there with Rio as the highlight of Duran Duran's extraordinary career, although I do love Ordinary World as well. How about some hard rock? We've got some Scorpions. This is, now, those of you who know that label D-Ram, you know why this is special. This is a 1970 Japanese first press hard cardboard gatefold of 10 years after. Look at that. In fantastic condition. Complete with the writer's notes on the back. We're coming to the end with a couple of really fun ones to finish with. One that actually, both of these, I don't think I've had either of these before. I'm kind of amazed. This is a Japanese first press of Bob Marley's Kea. Yeah, Easy Shaking, She's Gone, some really great stuff. And then this, now I got this because this came in a box a couple of months back, and it was in there, and I kept it on my sleeve, and I played it, and I just thought it was a delight. And so I put a request into my friends in Shibuya for a second copy. This time I got a first press, and it's this. It's the Alan Parsons project, Eve. Super melodic. Really, what an interesting character the project of Alan Parsons is. So there you go. All Japanese, nearly all first press, a bunch that I've never had before. Watch out for the list on Wednesday at 9 p.m. The second box is actually not Japanese. It's going to be a bunch of other things, but you're going to have to watch it to see. Any feedback, of course, let me know. I've taken the feedback. Please go landscape, or gone landscape. Hopefully that's been a better experience for you all. Love doing these, love the feedback. Thank you all. And for those of you who've joined post the record fair on Saturday, welcome. All right. Thank you all.